Welcome back, folks, to the 9.20 Common Test Server, and today we'll preview all the Chinese tank destroyers coming in this patch. Now originally, these vehicles were labeled as Chinese server exclusive, but I predicted that the developers would probably cave in and release these vehicles onto the other servers like the 59 Patent, the WZ-111, the 121B, or the T-44-100 for the Russian server after a certain amount of time, because there's a lot of work done for these vehicles. The HD modeling, the textures, the quote-unquote balancing, so it would be pretty stupid not to release these vehicles onto the other servers, but only after a certain amount of time. It turns out it only took 9 days on the Chinese server for the developers to announce that these vehicles will be available for the rest of the servers. So that's super funny. Hidden agendas, don't even care about feedback, so whatever. But these vehicles are very straightforward from the initial tech tree release. So taking a look on the test server, you only have one line. There's no branching off of to the medium tank line to the heavy tank line, so it's just a pure single line of vehicles. So you have 9 vehicles total branched off of the light tank at tier 1. So it's a very simple research. Research the gun, research the engine and the tracks, and that's pretty much it. If you already played the medium tank line or the heavy tank line, you should have the radio. So that's a plus to grind out these vehicles. But what's really disappointing about the grind is that you don't have the engine. So these vehicles share a same chassis as medium tanks or heavy tanks or light tanks at low tier, but they're supposed to have the same engine. But it's not. So you have to research the engine for all of these vehicles, whereas they share the same engine for the medium tanks and the heavy tanks, so you can switch the engines around because some of them have the same chassis. So yeah, for example, the WZ-111 1G or WZ-131G supposed to have the same engine as the medium tank or heavy tank counterpart, but no. It's a different lettering of the engine by like one syllable or one letter. So you have to research these engine again on the tank destroyers. So that's also a bummer. But the tracks are supposed to be unique for the vehicles, similar to the other tank destroyers. So for example, the Germans have the Ferdinand compared to the Tiger P. You have to research the tracks, but the engine is shared. So that's a bummer. Also, similar to the German tank destroyers, to the heavy tank counterparts, you have to research the gun again. So for the 128 on the E75, it's supposed to be the same gun on the Ferdinand, but different research. I mean, pack to KWK, but technically it's the same gun, so you have to do the research. Alright, that sucks, but let's get started at tier 2. So we have the T-26GFT. This is basically a Russian light tank, the T-26, with a turret cutoff, a superstructure, and a pretty decent gun. A 47mm at tier 2 with 81mm of pin, so that's pretty decent. Gun traverse arc, not that bad. It's decent, like the ISU, so average. Armor wise, 18mm of armor all the way around. Actually 18 in the front, 50 in the sides, 50 in the rear. So you'll be pinned by high explosive, but it's tier 2. Nobody use high explosive. Well, some derp gun use high explosive. Not the T-18 though. You don't see that thing anymore. Oh well. So armor wise, no armor, but it's a light tank based tank destroyer, so don't expect bouncing. But penetration is actually pretty good for a tier 2. 81mm. Yeah, that's way above average. Same goes for the Alpha. DPM is also pretty decent. Carries 80 rounds, but it's tier 2, so no problem there. Shell velocity, pretty decent too, so no problem aiming and shooting and leading the shot. Accuracy 0.36 for low tier, that's pretty decent. 2 seconds of aim time. Also not that bad, not really that bad. 6 degrees of gun depression might be a problem. 15 elevation might be a problem, but traverse is only 33 degrees per second. It's slightly below average, but does not feel like a light tank based chassis. Feels a little bit more of a large heavy. Same goes for the horsepower per ton ratio of only 12. So not as fast, only 36 kilometers per hour, and terrain resistance below average. So the mobility part of this vehicle is not great. It's mediocre. Health is slightly above average. View range is below average, slightly. Does have pretty good camo, so you'll be a little bit sneaky and use the gun. So the penetration, the alpha, the DPM, this vehicle is focused on the gun. So let your teammates spot for you and you do all the work. But the radio is... yeah, the radio does require some work. Only 300 meters of radio coverage. At tier 2 still, but yeah, you probably would have to get a little bit closer than you would like. And this thing doesn't have armor, so yeah. I mean, the gun's good. The gun's great for tier 2, but otherwise, camping the back. Similar to all the tank destroyers out there. So, traditional tank destroyer playstyle. Yep, it's pretty decent. At tier 3, we have the Stuart, the M3G FT. So basically a Stuart with the turret cut off, putting a gun shield and a 76mm onto the vehicle. So I thought this thing would be like the Scorpion, the tier 7 American M56 Scorpion, but it does not have a well traverse arc for the gun. So not as great as the Scorpion, but it's a little bit better than the T26, slightly. So the gun shield does still act as actual armor, so if you do get hit by machine guns or autocannons, you lose all your health. The hull armor is okay for against machine guns, but you'll still be pinned by normal cannons. Lower plate is actually pretty good, so don't shoot the lower plate. So in general, still a light tank with a turret cut off and a large gun. A 76mm or 57 is also pretty decent. So the top gun is mostly focused on the alpha. Penetration's below average, but tier 3 will not see tier 5s anymore. So 85mm of pin, it's workable. You don't have to face KV1s anymore. So that's pretty decent. Alpha is high. You basically 2.5 shot tier 3s and you basically 2 shot tier 2s. So it reloads pretty decently fast. DPM is not as great, but 28 is it's okay. Accuracy decent. 0.36, 1.8 seconds of aim time, 5 degrees of gun depression, 15 elevation. So yeah, still a sniper gun mostly, but show velocity is a little bit slower, less ammo by half compared to the T26, but hey, it does have more engine power now, so it will feel like a light tank rather than a fat medium. Terrain resistance still below average, so a little bit wonky, but top speed of 55 will feel a lot faster. That's good. Health is average. View range average. Radio is still kinda garbo. It's workable now. I mean, 400 meters is like the circle, the yellow circle on your map. That's the maximum draw distance, or 445, but that's close to it, so you can use that as a judgment. Camo is also not as good, but it will not see tier 5. This is a wrong label, so all tier 3s will not see tier 5s. Only 13 tons. So still play this thing like a camping tank destroyer, but the gun's pretty decent. Pretty decent. Also, you could use the 57mm with a lot more penetration than the average. Lower alpha though, but you have a little bit more DPM, so it's more of a perma-track gun. Accuracy is not as good as the 76, surprisingly. Also, aim time is also not as good. as a 76, but it's a smaller caliber. What? Oh, it's a longer barrel gun. Yeah, it's a longer barrel gun. I thought, you know, that could be the reason. Still, use the 76 for the Alpha. You want to use the Alpha. So, not a bad vehicle. Not bad at all. It's just the gun shield is a little bit huge. A little bit at the front, but hey, just camp in the back. Always camp in the back. And moving on to the tier 4, we have a SU-76G FT. So based off the SU-76M, but rear mounted. Interesting. So it's not that bad looking. I mean, it's similar to the SU-100s, M1s with the rear mounted turrets, rear mounted superstructures. So not bad, I guess. Does have the Dishka in the back, the large ass machine gun. So it has a 85mm at tier 4, pretty decent. Facing up to tier 6. Armor wise, no armor. 35 at the front, 25 for the upper plate, lower plate 35, superstructure 35. Where's the 42? Oh, this driver hatch right here. You will not bounce any shots. 50 on the sides, high explosive. 10 at the rear, high explosive. Gun arc, fairly wide for a rear mounted tank destroyer with a superstructure. So that's not bad. Not bad at all. Let's take a look at the penetration for the 85. 128 at tier 4. Not bad. Would be a little bit better, but it's tier 4. So 160 alpha. Below average, but DPM is decent. Slightly above average. Shell velocity, slightly above average. 42 rounds. Workable. Accuracy 0.38. A little bit rough, but the average is 0.44. That's probably due to the derp guns, the derpy 105s. So it's inflated, but 1.6 seconds of aim time. That's very good. 5 degrees of gun depression, 15 elevation, still wonky. Whoa, 25.21 horsepower per ton ratio. Fast. Turn resistance is a lot better than the Stuart version, so doesn't get bogged down as much. Top speed 45, still decent. Above average health by 10. 320 meters of view range, slightly above average. Decent radio now, so you will be able to camp in the back with efficiency. Camouflage rating in 35% is alright. It's not great. Great would be like 40, but that's more of a STRV S1 levels, the S-Tank levels. So, it's still decent. Only 12 tons. So, lower tiers are mostly featherweight, mostly focused on the gun. So, yeah, not a bad 85mm. You can also use the 76 as on the Stuart, but penetration might be a problem against tier 6, obviously. And moving on to the tier 5. So the 60G FT. Switching to tier 5. It's a little bit bigger. Yeah, it's a little bit bigger. Holy crap. The superstructure is a lot bigger. Alright, so a project for a tank destroyer based on the Soviet ATT artillery tractor. So based on the SPG. I mean, these vehicles are supposedly could be constructed, so legitimacy is questionable. Yada yada, the usual stuff. Has a 85mm. It's upgraded from the tier 4 variant. Armor wise, 25 for the front. Lower plate is dirty, so you'll be pinned. High explosive, especially from Shermans, from Panzer 4H. Yeah, high explosive wrecks you. Gun arc, a little bit wider, doesn't it? Yeah, it does seem a little bit wider, so yeah, not bad for the gun arc. Does feel like the IKV-90 Type B, but has somewhat decent gun depression. So, fairly decent. Not bad at all, but still featherweight. So weighs only 26 tons. You'll be rammed, but penetration 145. Not bad. Above average, slightly. Alpha, above average, 180. DPM is actually cray-cray. 2,346. That's 400 more than the average. Holy Jesus. Basically, you reload every 4.4 seconds with the gun rammer. And it's an 85mm, so alpha is above average. This gun's pretty decent. Accuracy below average, slightly 0.36, but it's similar to the previous vehicles, so doesn't feel that different. 1.6 seconds of aim time, still pretty fast. 8 degrees of gun depression. Interesting. 25 elevation. Good angles, very good. And shell velocity, workable. It's not great, it's still workable. 17.31 horsepower per ton ratio. 45 kilometers per hour top speed, 35 degrees per second traverse. It's still relatively fast, but this DPM, whew, that should be the highlight. 400 health. Yeah, that's a lot. That's 10% more about. So basically, you won't be, well, you still be nuked by the Shermans and the Panzer IV-H, but it depends on the dice roll. So you will survive a lot more than the counterparts, the Stug 3s, the Panzer Toaster, the Panzer IV Toaster. So due to the high explosive, you'll survive a little bit more, like 2 rounds, but it has a lot of health. View range is also not bad, above average. Same radio, alright. Camo is the down part, the weak part. So 22.4%. It's not as stealthy, but this is more of a glass cannon than the previous versions, mostly focused on the gun. I'm surprised it's not 100mm at tier 5, but that would be probably crazy. That would be crazy. So the gun's actually very good, considering the shells, but oh my god. I didn't look at the gold shell, but starting at tier 5, let's start looking at gold shell. It's 220 high explosive anti-tank. This is basically pay to win. You just pay to win high explosive anti-tank with that DPM. Jesus. Let's quickly check the tier 4. So this will see tier 6, but it's okay. 172. Yeah, that's workable against tier 6. But this is tier 5 now, with facing up to tier 7. 220? You'll melt through the Oni like no problem. High explosive anti-tank, screw your armor. Oh, Oni, 175mm at the front. You think you're badass. Screw you. This could be pay to win. High explosive anti-tank all the way around. Jesus. Yeah, it's not as stealthy. It's a little bit huger, but the gun has a lot of DPM. A lot of DPM, so that's the strength. Glass cannon. Moving on to the tier 6, the one based off of the WZ-131G FT. So it's like the light tank, but you have a superstructure. It looks pretty nice though, like a miniature Su-122-44 or 54. It's like a smaller tank. That's cute. Very nice. You have a 100mm for the vehicle. Gun arc, about the same as previous, so not bad. Armor wise, 35 at the front. It's sloped, but high explosive will pin you. You have a gun encasement of 50. It's sloped to 85, but you'll be pinned. So yeah, armor wise, no armor. 241mm of pin for APCR. Not bad, but you have to face tier 8s in this vehicle. So 241 is workable. It's fine. And its APCR has better normalization than high explosive anti-tank. So it's a small miniature Su-122. That's so cute. I can hug it. That's pretty nice. Penetration 181. good for tier 6, decent, but it's faster firing than the likes of the IKV-65, the Scion car of a tank. So alpha is slightly below average, but DPM counters it. Alright, only 40 rounds, shouldn't be that big of a problem. Shell velocity is above average. 0.345 accuracy, not bad in my honest opinion, but it's below average. 1.9 seconds of aim time, 5 degrees of gun depression, 15 elevation. Hull traverse is fast, based off of a light tank. They're supposed to be fast. 21.5 horsepower per ton ratio, good. 45 degrees per second traverse, 50 kilometers per hour top speed, 18 reverse. Terrain resistance above average. Health is slightly below average. Alright, camo is great, so that's awesome, but only 350 meters of view range, slightly below average. So it's a light tank with a 100mm. That's a tank destroyer. Now I'm just reminded that they took away the 100mm for the WZ-131 at tier 7 for the light tank rework in 9.18. You sons of bitches! You took away the 100mm, you put it on a tank destroyer. That's why you take away the 100 on the tier 7 WZ-131? Well, as for a tank destroyer, compare this to the Panzer IV, Yak Panzer IV. Yeah, does seem a little bit better, right? I mean, it's a lot faster, obviously, but it's a light tank. View range, it could be a problem. Could be, but all tank destroyers are like that, so not that. I mean, it's not as bad as the Scion car. It's like 300 or 320. Ugh. So, yeah. It's cute. Very cute. Miniature Su-122. So, yeah. If it wasn't for the light tank nerf, I'll probably like this even more, but it just reminds me of the WZ-131. Oh well. On to the tier 7. So this is based off of the medium tank variant, but this is even more of a miniature model of a Su-122. So it's even more flat than the previous light tank. Does seem like it. Oh, that looks pretty. It does have a kind of a huge cupola. Kind of a large cupola, like the Germans. But, hey, still workable traverse arc. That's good. Unlike the ARL V39 or the Churchill gun carrier, stuff like that. Ugh. But the cupola is only 45mm. Will be pinned. Upper plate is 70 now, sloped. So it's not bad. If you gun depress, you could increase the angling of the hull a little bit more, but it's at tier 7, so you'll be pinned. Still, I mean, you're a tank destroyer, so don't expect much. You're not a assault gun like the Ferdinand or the Yak Tigers, so don't expect much from the armor, but now just focus on the gun, mostly. So this vehicle has an interesting choice of two guns, 122, a D25T variant, or a 100mm variant. But let's check out the D25T, the 122. So side armors 45, rear armor 30, 45. You'll be pinned. So let's check out the gun. So for the gun, 192mm of pin for tier 7. You will face tier 9s. So gold shell is 250 high explosive anti-tank. Not bad. So no problem against tier 9s with that gold shell, but this gun is like it's like any other D25T, except it has 20 more millimeters of pin. The normal D25T on the Su-122-44 has 175, so yeah, you have like 17 more millimeters of penetration. What? For the same alpha, you have more penetration and the same matchmaking. And holy shit, this thing has a lot of DPM. 2,568. That's pretty good. Accuracy 0.38. Not bad for a D25T. Aim time is a little bit long, 2.88 seconds. So you could use enhanced gun lane drive for that. 5 degrees of gun depression, 15 elevation. This thing has no armor, so don't try to bounce shots with the gun depression. 30 rounds, similar to Russian tanks mostly. But this is a medium-based chassis. Well, the SU-122-44 is a medium tank-based chassis. 16.25 horsepower per ton ratio. 50 kilometers per hour top speed. Terrain resistance is below average to counterbalance the horsepower per ton ratio. So, 800 health, below average. 316 meters of view range. Very good camo. Very insane camo, actually. Similar to the S1 or the S tanks. So this is a very stealthy tank destroyer. We'll see tier 9s, but let's quickly compare this to the SU-122-44 to get a benchmark. So better penetration by 17. Oh yeah, DPM is not as good by 1 shell, but you have more accuracy, slightly. Not as good aim time. Slightly better horsepower per ton ratio, but not as good with the terrain resistance department. Slightly faster. Not as much health, but you do have more view range and more camo. So if you like the SU-122-44, if you want more penetration, but at the cost of DPM, but better accuracy, not as good aim time, you could choose this vehicle. But aesthetically wise, it's a very beautiful looking flat pancake of a SU-122-44. Just the cupola. The cupola is German-esque. So yeah, looks like the one on the Porsche Tiger, early Tigers. So it looks a little bit wonky, but does look like a fusion of a captured SU-122 by the Germans, and they put a German cupola. It would be funny if they put a German 128. That would be great. But it's a normal tank, so you can research this thing. Do we have enough copies of the SU-122-44? That's a question. And you have the SU-152 and the S100M1, SU-100M1. So don't exactly having a medium tank based 122 for a tank destroyer at tier 7 technically. So could be decent. Could be decent. And let's check out the 100mm because its alternative penetration is not as bad, but it's still below the D25T 122. So interesting. Doesn't have that much pen. It's a stock, or it's not the stock gun. It's a second elite gun. DPM is also not as great as the D25T. Same goes for the Alpha. Only 40 rounds. Pretty good accuracy though. 0.33. 1.7 seconds of aim time. So you will feel slightly faster for the horsepower per ton ratio. But would you rather use the 122 or the 100 for this vehicle? I would probably say the 122 because the DPM mostly. So the DPM is a large aspect of all tank destroyers. But if you want the accuracy and the aim time, go for the 100mm. If you want the alpha and the penetration, go for the D25T, the 122. But it's a lot better than the Russian variants. A lot better. And the high explosive anti-tank for the gold shell is also pretty hefty against tier 9s. APCR for the 100 is also not bad. It's a usable gun. So that's the tier 7. It's a good version of a T-34-2. Feels bad about the tier 8 medium though. Buff the T-34-2 please. Ugh, it's been a long time. It's a relic of the past. Please buff it. On to the tier 8. So we have the WZ-111 1GFT. That's a mouthful. Basically a WZ-111, chop off the turret, putting on a superstructure, and putting the same gun that's on the WZ-111 1-4, and 5A. So the 130 onto a tier 8 with a superstructure, mostly. So it's a large, chunky tank destroyer, similar to the ISU, but it's based off the WZ-111 chassis, so more like the Object 704 era aspect wise, but it's super square for the superstructure. Kinda large too, but hey, the gun is long. The gun is a very long gun from the 5A. Doesn't look that bad. I think you could put the same kind of superstructure on a IS-3 or IS-5. That would be hilarious. But yeah, it never existed. No way. No way in hell. So gun arc wise, still pretty decent across the tech tree. Armor wise, it's 180 slope backwards for the superstructure. So this will defeat mostly medium tank guns like 90mm or 88s, smaller caliber 88s. Or Russian 100mm mostly, but it's not great against higher tier guns like heavy tank guns. You will be pinned. Still, depends on your angling. You can just angle to 240 or 250 if you're lucky enough, but depends on where your enemies shoot. Upper plate is lower than the actual WZ-111. It's only 100mm as opposed to 120, so it's only about 180mm effective. Lower plate 120, similar to the regular tanks, but weaker upper plate. Driver hatch 50, so cannot be overmatched. So basically similar to the IS-3s, shoot the upper proportion of the cheeks or the lower plate, but don't shoot the IS-3's lower plate. Will not pin. Superstructure will be pinned by very high caliber guns, so be wary. Alright, but you do have a gun manlet now, as opposed to no gun manlet on some of the tank destroyers. But yeah, it's only 200mm flat without armor underneath. Ugh, you could be pinned. So armor wise, it's questionable. You could bounce a few shots. You're more able to survive than the light tank or the medium tank counterparts without the armor as before, but don't depend on it, obviously. You do have space side skirts or the side shots, but side of the superstructure is only 80, rear armor is only 60. Yeah, it's like the ISU. Some parts will bounce, but don't even depend on it. Yeah. You have 25 rounds. Whew. It is the tier 10 gun. Obviously, the high explosive anti-tank is 340mm of pin for a freaking tier 8. Fudge your stupid mouse. I don't care. Eat gold shell. So, normal pin for AP shell is 271. That's great. That's very close to the ISU. Hold that thought. They nerfed the crap out of the ISU's BL10. There's no more BL10. It's a freaking mockery of the former. It's only 260, so yeah, this has better penetration than the ISU now. God, I still can't believe it. It feels weird. It feels really weird. Alpha is pretty good, 560. DPM, above average, 2,500. So that's pretty nice. Only 25 rounds, but it's more than the ISU, so just make it count. Shell velocity, not bad. 930 for large ass caliber gun, not bad. 0.34 accuracy, not bad. 2.68 aim time, seconds of aim time. That's good. For a large ass gun, that's good actually. 6 degrees of gun depression, 15 elevation, traditional, as with other light tanks previously. So hull traverse is slower now. Same goes for the horsepower per ton ratio is not as good, but it's based off of a heavy tank chassis, so logically supposed to be a little bit slower. 35 kilometers per hour top speed. It's slower than the WZs. The WZ-111s have 50 kilometers per hour top speed, if I remember correctly, so it's a little bit slower. Only 1000 health, so not as chunky as the ISU, but the ISU got buffed to 1200 health. Originally it had 1100 health, so it's like the old ISU, but 370 meters of view range, above average, standard radio for high tiers, relatively good camo. But the thing I'm interested in is the ISU comparison. Where's the ISU 152? You mockery. You mock the ISU. Wait, did it not change it? Oh, that's the relic. That's a placeholder relic. I got excited out of a placeholder. You bastards. Where's the current ISU? There it is. So yeah, this is the current ISU 152 with a mockery of the past D4S 152mm. They're basically just elongated the ML20S, the stock gun. They basically took this model, make the barrel longer, and call it a gun. Never existed. This is a fictitious gun, I believe. So, why did you take away the BL-10? You asshats! Fucking mockery. So, penetration-wise, it's better now than the ISU by 11mm. Not as good alpha, but DPM is also not as good, but you have a lot better accuracy. A lot better accuracy, a lot better aim time, relatively okay, about the same, close enough. Alpha, I mean, it's not great, but DPM is also close enough. You fire faster, and faster shell velocity. Horsepower per ton ratio is also not as good. Same goes for top speed, and not as much health, but you do have more view range by 20. Yep, by 20, and better camo. Just spam high explosive anti-tank. Yeah, by 48mm. Wait, does the ISU use APCR? Yeah. Still, you have 5 more rounds. Spamming high explosive anti-tank with pretty decent accuracy, in all honest opinion. Why did you nerf the ISU, you pieces of shit? You asshats! You asshole! I'm disappointed. But yeah, it's a pretty good tank destroyer. It's relatively accurate for the high alpha. I mean, it could be like the Yak Tiger's gun. I mean, compare this to the Ferdinand. Yeah, you kick Ferdinand's ass. More penetration, more alpha. Let's take a look at the Ferdinand. But the Ferdinand has a lot more health to take a hit. So, yeah, more penetration than the Ferdinand, more alpha. Close enough DPM, about 100. Not as good accuracy, not as good aim time. The same view range, a lot better camo, faster to move. Obviously not as much health, but I mean, do we have a vehicle similar to this thing other than the ISU? The SU-101 with the upgraded 122? Not good enough alpha, in my honest opinion, to this alpha. I mean, Ferdinand, the Yak Tiger 2, the Yak Panther 2, Yak Tiger 2, I wish. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Use goat shell. Use a lot of goat shell for high explosive anti-tank against mouses, and you piss them the hell off. He's like, you think you're so tough with your OPS armor? And well, screw you. 340mm a pin. Oh, let's move on to the tier 9. So tier 9 we have the WZ-111 GFT. So this is without the 1 GFT. Usually the 1 GFT is a smaller caliber than the GFT. So this is basically a chunky ISU looking vehicle with the same muzzle brake. That's very chunky. Holy crap. So armor wise, it's 240 or 200 millimeters for the superstructure, and where the hell is 240? This little plate right here for the commander cupola. So you could bounce a few shots. So now you actually have some armor to work with, and gun depression wise, you can increase that to about 270 to 260 or so. Gun mantlet, don't even think about it. It's a large ass tumor of a gun mantlet. So lower plate, yeah, shoot the lower plate, but don't shoot the tumor. Tumor. Side armor 80, rear armor 60. So yeah, it actually has some armor. 260 is basically the cutoff point for gold shells or high explosive anti-tank gold shells. So yeah, not a bad superstructure, not bad, but it's a large derpy gun. You can also use the 130 from the previous WZ-111 1GFT. So might be a little bit worthwhile to use the standard gun, but let's take a look at the 152. Wait, let's take a look at the gun arc first. Same gun arc, mostly, so not bad. So with 152, 290 millimeters of pin, above average. 750 alpha. DPM is below average, only 30 rounds, but it's a large ass gun. Ooh, the shell velocity is slow. 760. This is the same as the Object 268, originally at tier 10. Now they buffed it to 900 something, but this is the original shell velocity speed of the Object 268. So if you have played the Object 268, you are pretty comfortable with this gun. 0.384 accuracy, below average obviously for a large ass gun, but 2.4 seconds of aim time for this gun, not bad. 6 degrees of gun depression, 15 elevation, the same. Traverse for the hull is only 25 degrees per second, top speed 35, reverse of 16, 12 horsepower per ton ratio, and below average terrain resistance. So this is a lot slower than what you are used to before this vehicle. On the earlier vehicles of the tech tree, it has more health than the average though, so a lot more health, jump up by 800 compared to the previous tier 8 WZ-111 1G. View range, above average slightly, not as good camo obviously. It's basically assault gun now, whereas previously you have tank destroyers, and with the WZ-111 1G, that's like a hybrid. So this 130 feels like the Object 268's gun before this patch. So I mean, shell velocity is a very important deal. So 760 meters per second will feel slow and you have to lead your shot. But this thing does have better gun arc than the 268 before this patch. So I don't know. Has the pin, has the alpha, has the insane high explosive anti-tank. So you'll melt like with gold shell, but accuracy is I mean, aim time is good, but 0.38 accuracy. Well, let's compare this to the Object 704 because closest resemblance of a comparison. So you have 4 more millimeters of pin, same alpha, less DPM slightly, not as good accuracy but faster aim time, not as good horsepower per ton ratio, as well as terrain resistance, as well as top speed. So this thing is slower than the 704, but you have a lot more armor at the front, more uniform armor, and more view range by 20. Not as good camo, you know. So basically, play this vehicle more aggressively than the 704, more like a Yak Tiger 88. Yak Tiger with 128. So yeah, it's more in your face than the 704, and it still has the weird configuration with the gun. So the gun is mounted towards the starboard side of the vehicle, so it's like shifted towards the right hand side, and therefore you can use a wall to block off the left hand side, similar to the ISU. So you can use that tactic, and this superstructure is not weak compared to the ISU. It's about 250 effective. So I mean, it's a assault gun now. It's not exactly a tank destroyer, a sniping tank destroyer. But let's take a look at the 130, the same gun that's on the 5A, as well as on the tier 8, the 1GFT for the WZ-111. So with the stock gun, you still have pretty good penetration, in my honest opinion. 271 is still relatively okay, but you have about the same DPM. Below average alpha, sure, but accuracy 0.34, not bad. 2.4 seconds of aim time, you could use the stock gun, and yeah, the stock gun is just as viable as the top gun, the top 152. Same goes for the gold shell as well. So I mean, basically, this gun is superfluous. It's not as useful, and it costs about 67,000 XP to research. But then again, in order to research the tier 10, you have to research this gun. Give it a better 152. It's like the Object 268. I mean, if the Object 268 could use the BL10, I think a lot of players would switch to the BL10 on the Object 268 originally before the buff. So the shell velocity is a big deal. It's a derpy 152. I mean, assault gun. Alright. In layman's term, in summary, assault gun ISU. Alright, fine. I guess. But maybe another reason for the nerf on the ISU is to make these vehicles stand out. Maybe. Ooh, where's my tinfoil hat? You asshole! Why the hell did you nerf the ISU? You sons of bitches. Keep going at it. Keep beating the dead horse. And here is the 113 GFT. So basically cutting off the 113's turret and putting a superstructure and the 152 from the previous vehicle. But it is... it's smaller, I guess, but the superstructure is larger. Does seem like the superstructure is larger. So... Alright, so let's take a look at the gun arc. Like the same before, so pretty decent. Nothing hiding there, but for the armor, it's 230 slope backwards, uniform, without weak spot. So it's about 290 millimeters of pin required for AP shell. Oh, Jesus. 305 to 300 to 310 at the top, 220. So this is a very strong superstructure. It's even stronger than the Yak Panzer E100. What? Let's take a look at the Yak Panzer E100, just for comparison sake. Yeah, it's stronger than the Yak Panzer E100 by about 20 millimeters effective, or 10. Large ass superstructure, but it's not as big as the Yak Panzer E100. Interesting. Upper plate 100 millimeter, so it will be pinned. Lower plate 135 backwards to about 200, most likely pinned. So basically, assault gun ISU even more, but yeah, it's a smaller chassis. The 113 is slightly smaller than the WZ-111, slightly. 80 millimeters of side armor, 70 at the rear. Ugh. So yeah. Gold shell Palooza into the freaking superstructure. 290. 300. How do you kill this thing unless you shoot the lower plate? What if he hides the bottom plate with like a rock? There's no way of pinning this thing. I mean, you can shoot at the cupola. There's nothing there. Actually, there is. Never mind. Oh, he's hiding behind the periscope. So you could shoot the cupola. Oh, that's a lot better. That's a lot better to counter. At least there's a weak spot. No, same goes for the loader hatch. That's good. But yeah, if you hide and gun press, there's no way of shooting the cupola. So make sure you gun press all the time, and therefore maximize your protection. So you better aim. You really better aim. Otherwise, you have to use... I don't even think gold shell could pin. Like high exposure anti-tank, you still need a lot of normalization. And if he slopes it, yeah, it's about 313 to parts of ricochet, obviously, for the encasement. So it's a large flat plate. Sloped flat plate. It's why you're so chunky. And it's the same 130. So, or 152, my mistake, but it's like the 152 on the WZ111G FT at tier 9, so penetration is below average, slightly, same alpha as the other ones, average, DPM, average, accuracy 0.36, below average, but it's a large ass gun, so counterbalance, 2.4 seconds aim time. That's a little bit disappointing because it's the same as the tier 9. It should be like 2.2 or 2.3, but 6 degrees gun depression, 15 elevation, 30 degrees per second traverse, only 11.82 horsepower per turn ratio, slightly better terrain resistance to help out with the crappy horsepower per turn ratio, but only 38 kilometers per hour top speed, reverse of 16, 2,100 health. It's very chunky. Yeah, this is 100 less than the Jagdpanzer E100. This is a assault gun, so it's like the Jagdpanzer E100 now. It has 390 meters of view range, pretty decent, above average. Camo is also workable. It's not bad, it's not good. So in layman's term, it's a Jagdpanzer E100 with the Object 268's gun. The shell velocity speed, that's one of the biggest problems. And it cannot use 130 like the predecessor at tier 9. So you cannot work around this gun, you have to use it. And it is the end game vehicle. Does it feel special compared to the Jagdpanzer E100? Not really. When you think about it, the Jagdpanzer E100 has the armor, has a weak lower plate, sure, similar to this vehicle, but it has a boomstick. It has a 1000 alpha, 1050 alpha boomstick, and you shove it up people's asses. Whereas this vehicle's gun, it's like the 268. It feels a little bit lackluster, right? Yeah. Doesn't have a boomstick of a gun. So view range, same, better camo, a lot better camo, but it moves faster than the Jagdpanzer E100, obviously, faster top speed, not as accurate as the Jagdpanzer E100, and faster to aim, not as good penetration, not as good alpha, obviously, better DPM, so it should be played like the Jagdpanzer E100, but the Jagdpanzer E100 could soak up a lot of hits with the side armor as well. You can side scrape. This has only 80mm of side armor, so you have to use the superstructure to bounce shots and hide the lower plate. And somehow you have to manage the shell leading of the low shell velocity. So it doesn't have the boomy feel of the Panzer E100, or vehicles like the FE25B1A3 with the HESH shell. That's a niche, that's a special feature that's unique to the vehicle. But for this vehicle, it doesn't feel as unique, does it? So that's the only problem I have with it, because if you give this vehicle a 170mm like the Panzer E100, it will feel a lot better, a little bit more different than the previous vehicles of the tech tree, but it used the same gun as the Tier 9 without that much benefit towards it. It's a little bit accurate but the same aim time and about the same DPM. So it has basically improved armor over the Tier 9, and that's pretty much it. And a little bit more view range, sure, but that's pretty much it. So yeah, in retrospect, in a broader sense of overview for the whole tech line, I would expect that the Tier 5 be pretty decent because of the DPM. The middle tiers are workable, very sneaky, so they're like light tanks or medium tanks. But if you want to see the large alpha, you could use the Tier 8, the WZ111 1G FT. So that would be slightly like the old ISU in terms of workability, but it does feel like the Tier 9 and the Tier 10 are somewhat lackluster, mostly because of the low shell velocity of a gun for the 152. So yeah, it's alright of a line, but I think the major purpose of all the guns that they're going to use for the tech tree is mostly because of the gold shell. The high explosive anti-tank has absurd penetration for the tier, for each of them, across the board. So you'll pin with gold. I don't think they fixed the balancing issue coming from the Chinese server. Did you guys take a look at it? Yeah. So should you be interested in this tech line? Well, I'll be interested in the Tier 5, mostly because of the DPM, and maybe the Tier 7, mostly because of the aesthetics. It looks pretty nice, like a flat SU-122-44. But otherwise, it's basically taking a heavy tank, cut off the turret, put the same gun, 130 or somewhat weak of 152, in my honest opinion. So it's like playing the Object 268 if you want to get to the Tier 10. Well, talking about the Object 268, they buffed it. So you already noticed from the patch notes, but quickly go over the 268. They buffed the shell velocity to 950. It's a lot better now, a lot better. And still the same old penetration and DPM. So yeah, I mean, it has aim time. These vehicles have good aim time, 2.4, but compared to the 268, if you want the gun, you play the 268. If you want the armor of the vehicles, you play with these vehicles. So, but if you want to play assault gun tank destroyer, why not just play the Yak Tigers or the Yak Panzer E100 or the FE25B1A3s or the Tortoise? Well, it's mostly because of the uniform armor, so you'll be more likely to bounce shots. But yeah, it's not exactly a sniping tank destroyer line across the board. So in the early parts, it's sniping tank destroyer. In the middle, it's more of a medium tank with large guns for your pleasure to shoot at. So it's a hybrid. You can snipe, you could somewhat assault gun, but don't rely on it. So it's still sniping until Tier 7. Then for the Tier 8, you can do the assault gun part or the sniping part. It's up to you. But for the later part, the last two tiers, the Tier 9 and the Tier 10, it's assault gun purely. So stick it into people's faces, use city maps, and bounce shots. So basically, if you want to play as a Yak Panzer E100 in an ISU, that's what these vehicles are good for. So, more variety, I guess. It's fine, I guess, but still remember, not all the components are shared from the medium tank or heavy tank line, so no engine upgrades, gun upgrades, all missing from the other tech lines from the Chinese tech tree. So you still have to grind the gun and the engine and the tracks, not the radio. So there you go, folks. The Chinese tank destroyers coming in patch 9.20. So thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something from it. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.